Hello and welcome back to this year's special Easter Day video. In last year's Easter video, I talked about the Tamagoras, a series of egg-shaped transforming figures from Bandai that made their way into the original Masters of the Universe line as the Meteorbs. This year I'll be taking a look at another favorite tradition from Easter, bunnies. Look at how adorable they are. But I won't be talking about these bunnies, but rather these bunnies. So please join me as I take a look at the history of rabbit action figures. We can't talk about rabbits without first mentioning the most famous rabbit in the world, Bugs Bunny. Making his first appearance in the animated short, Porky's Hare Hunt from 1938, Bugs went on to star in over 160 short films produced between 1940 and 1964. Over the years, as his character evolved, his cartoons were worked on by a number of legendary animators, such as Tex Avery, Friz Freleng, and Chuck Jones. Bugs Bunny's character was defined by his voice, provided by the man of 1,000 voices, Mel Blanc, who voiced Bugs for 52 years, from his first appearance in 1938 until Blanc's passing in 1989. Besides those 160 animated shorts, Bugs has made numerous appearances in feature films, television shows, comic books, comic strips, and advertisements, making him the most prolific cartoon character ever and the most portrayed film personality in the world. He's even got his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Now, to go over all the toys and merchandise that have featured Bugs Bunny over the decades would be an impossible task. That list would fill volumes. So in this video, I'm just going to look at the highlights of his action figure history. Our journey starts with the toy company Tyco releasing a line of Looney Tunes figures in 1993. Following that, we have Playmates Toys, releasing figures for the film Space Jam in 1996. And following that up, with another line of Looney Tunes action figures, based on their classic cartoon shorts, in 1997. Mattel picks it up from there, releasing two different lines of Looney Tunes action figures in 2003. One as a tie-in for the film Looney Tunes Back in Action, and another line called Crazy Combos, which feature Looney Tunes figures with interchangeable parts. DC Direct releases a line of Looney Tunes in 2006 called Create a Scene, which feature figures with swappable parts, again based on the classic Looney Tunes animated shorts. In 2012, a toy company called The Bridge releases a series of figures based on The Looney Tunes Show, a sitcom-style cartoon that aired on Cartoon Network. In 2021, Moose Toys takes over, with a line of toys based on the film Space Jam: A New Legacy. Here is one of those Space Jam: A New Legacy Bugs figures, Bugs dressed as Batman. This is a very simple 5 POA figure. Arms and legs go up and down, although his head is on a ball joint, so you can turn it in a variety of different ways. He also has a carrot-shaped grapnel gun and a cloth goods cape. Not that big of a cape, but it's there. This figure is about 5 inches tall, but it did come in a larger scale that was packed in with a LeBron James figure dressed as Robin. And that's where having these heads on ball joints would bite them a little bit, because a very stupid thing began trending on TikTok, where people would go into stores and find those LeBron James action figures with their heads on ball joints, pop the heads off and steal them. So if you were in the toy aisles when these toys were being stocked at Walmart or Target, you may have seen dozens of headless LeBron James figures on the shelves. It was a very, very stupid idea, which equates to both vandalism and theft. One of the many reasons why I can't stand TikTok. And that brings us up to 2024, where Bugs Bunny has been featured prominently in different merchandise to celebrate Warner Brothers' 100th anniversary. These include action figures of Bugs crossed over with Harry Potter and Batman. There's also this PVC version of Bugs as Superman, which I did show a few months ago on one of my rapid reviews videos. He came packed in with a set of Looney Tunes PVCs as the Justice League of America, as you can see there. So the DC 100 tie-ins gave us versions of Bugs as both Superman and Batman. Next on our rabbit journey is the star of the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a 1988 live-action animated crossover directed by Robert Zemeckis, loosely based on the 1981 novel Who Censored Roger Rabbit by Gary K. Wolfe. Who Framed Roger Rabbit was groundbreaking in its mixing of live action and animation, and it featured appearances from classic cartoon characters from several different studios, including Walt Disney and Warner Brothers, with many of these characters crossing over for the first and probably only time. The aforementioned Bugs Bunny, Warner Brothers' marquee cartoon character, appeared in a scene with Walt Disney's marquee character, Mickey Mouse. Who Framed Roger Rabbit stars the voices of Charles Fleischer as Roger and Kathleen Turner as Jessica Rabbit. In the live-action roles, Bob Hoskins stars as Detective Eddie Valiant and Christopher Lloyd as the villainous Judge Doom. In 1988, LJN Toys received the license to produce figures based on the film. They released two different types of figures: traditional action figures called Animates, as well as bendable figures called Flexies. The LJN toy line only featured the original characters created for the film, not any of the crossover characters from Disney, Warner Brothers, or the other studios. Recently, Super 7 added Who Framed Roger Rabbit to its ever-growing stable of 3 3/4-inch scale reaction figures. So far, Super 7 has released 2 waves totaling 8 figures in their Roger Rabbit reaction line, as well as 2 special boxed figures of Roger and Judge Doom with bugged-out toon eyes. This Roger that I have here is a vintage bendable figure marked 1987, although I cannot find a manufacturer imprint on this figure. I don't think it is an LJN figure. It's possible that it was made by Applause or maybe Just Toys for their Bend'em line, but he is a cool little figure that I found at a thrift store. He stands about 5.5 inches tall, and even though he is bendable rubber, his entire body is just one solid rubber piece. There's really no way to bend his feet because the rubber is so thick. So basically all you're going to get is some hand posing and a little bit of bending in the ears. But he makes a cool little display piece if you're a fan of Roger Rabbit, and I don't think these figures are very expensive to come by. Back on Easter 2022, I did a full video about this next character, Jackson from the Star Wars universe. So if you want to learn more about Jackson and his origins, I'll link that video at the end of this one. But just to give you the highlights, Jackson appeared in Marvel's Star Wars comic number 8 in 1978. This was the very first original Star Wars fiction to be released after the first film. Jackson teamed up with Han Solo, Chewbacca, and other original characters created by Marvel, and were called the Star Hoppers of Aduba 3, in a story that was a thinly veiled ripoff of The Magnificent Seven, which was in turn based on the film The Seven Samurai. Like Han Solo, Jackson was a smuggler, said to be of the Lepi race, one of 13 children, who traveled the galaxy in his ship called the Rabbit's Foot. Jackson is a product of the Wild West period of Star Wars, a part of those early days before George Lucas had cemented the lore. It was said that Lucas himself was not a fan of Jackson, as he was a bit too silly to fit into his Star Wars universe. The sentiment that he was too silly was shared by many Star Wars fans, but a few of us who grew up reading Marvel Comics in those early days still had a fondness for the character. This led to Jackson making a comeback in Star Wars comics in the 2000s, and eventually this Black Series figure released as part of the Lucasfilm 50th anniversary. I don't have many Black Series figures, but when they announced Jackson, I knew I had to have him, because he represents to me that more innocent time when Star Wars was a wide open universe and kids could use their imaginations to fill in the blanks. And having a Black Series figure is all well and good, but what I'd love to have is a 3 3/4-inch Jackson done in the old Kenner style. In fact, I'd love to get a lot of the old Marvel Star Wars original characters in that old Kenner style, but they seem to have been forgotten about by not only Hasbro, but also by custom makers who create Star Wars characters in that original Kenner style. From one green space rabbit to another, Bucky O'Hare was the creation of writer Larry Hama, best known for his work on the G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero comics, and artist Michael Golden, best known for his work on Marvel's Micronauts. Although Bucky was created sometime between 1977 and 1978, he did not make his official debut until 1984, in the pages of the anthology series Echo of Future Past, published by Continuity Comics. Bucky would later graduate into his own series, which ran for 6 issues between 1984 and 1985. The story of Bucky O'Hare takes place in a parallel universe, where a war rages between the United Animals Federation and the sinister Toad Empire. In 1991, the story of Bucky O'Hare was adapted into an animated series called Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars. The animated series would run for a total of 13 episodes. Hasbro released a toy line to coincide with the animated series, which consisted of 10 action figures and 2 vehicles. The figures were done in a scale and style very similar to Playmate's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toy line, which was extremely popular at that time. A second series of figures made it to the prototype stage, but were never released due to the line's cancellation. In 2017, toy maker Boss Fight Studios began to release a brand new line of Bucky O'Hare action figures, featuring modern articulation and multiple accessories including interchangeable hands and faces. The new Boss Fight Bucky O'Hare figures originally retailed for between $30 and $35, but in 2023, collectors were delighted to find these figures at the discount store Ollie's, selling for the bargain price of $5.99. Unfortunately, stock on these figures was limited, and they disappeared just as quickly as they had appeared. And here I have a carded example of one of those Boss Fight figures, the first release of Bucky O'Hare. This one I keep on the card as a nice display piece because it is signed by co-creators Larry Hama right there and Michael Golden up there. And you can see all the alternate parts he comes with, extra set of hands, 2 different facial expressions. He does have 2 pistols and a little cape back there. The artwork and design is reminiscent of the original Hasbro figures. It does feature artwork by Michael Golden, as does the back of the card with artwork taken from the original comic. And this was part of the first wave, which was only 2 figures, Bucky O'Hare and First Mate Jenny, who was one of the canceled figures from the Hasbro line. There were 4 figures that were released for the second series. These are all the figures that say coming soon on the cross-sell. And it was these 4 figures from the second wave that actually showed up at Ollie's for that $5.99 discount price. And I did manage to get most of those figures that were available at Ollie's. This is the Storm Toad Trooper, the villain of the lot, Astral Projection Jenny, which is a recolor of the first wave release with some translucent parts, and the 4-armed Deadeye Duck. The 4th figure that was being sold at Ollie's was Stealth Suit Bucky, which was basically a recolor of this figure in a blue stealth suit. But I already had this first release, I wasn't interested in the recolor. So let's look at the articulation on this guy. Head's on a ball joint. The ears are articulated as well. His shoulders can go 360. This shoulder piece is flexible, so it doesn't hinder his movement. He's got elbows. Wrists can spin all around because the hands are interchangeable. He's got some waist movement, plenty of hip movement, bendable knees, ankle rocker, and he's got articulated toes. So much more articulation than the original Hasbro figures that mimicked the original Playmates Turtle figures. Basically 5 POA molded in those weird squat poses. Next we have the infamous Captain Carrot, who first appeared in DC Comics in February of 1982. He's the leader of a group of superhero animals called the Amazing Zoo Crew, created by writer Roy Thomas and artist Scott Shaw. A while back I did a comic review video featuring an issue of Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew from back in 1982. And in that video I gave you the full history of the creation of Captain Carrot and all the different members of the amazing zoo crew. So again, I will link that video at the end of this one. Although created way back in 1982, Captain Carrot went over 40 years without getting an action figure, until 2023, when this figure was created for the McFarlane DC Multiverse line. However, this is not an action figure of the original Captain Carrot, as he and the other animals that inhabited his world of Earth-C more closely resembled the type of cartoon characters you'd see from Hanna-Barbera or in Warner Brothers Looney Tunes cartoons. By the time this modern version of Captain Carrot appeared in comics, the DC Universe had been through the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, Flashpoint, New 52, Rebirth, and probably a half dozen other continuity reboots that I've forgotten about. This Captain Carrot first appeared in a series called Justice League Incarnate in 2021, which included superheroes pulled from various Earths in DC's new multiverse. In this new continuity, this Captain Carrot resides on Earth 26. I previously did a quick review of this figure in one of my rapid reviews videos, but just to go over it again, I love this figure. This is a really beautifully sculpted and detailed figure. The paint on the face is really nice. All the texturing on the costume is beautiful. He's got some great articulation. He did come with several alternate hands. I like to give him the thumbs up hand. He does have a pointy finger and some other different hands as well. The texturing also carries over to the cape, and I know some people prefer cloth goods capes to sculpted capes, but I think this one works just fine for this figure. Overall, just a really impressive figure, and I'm glad that McFarlane is diving deep into the comics lore for characters other than Batman. Of course, we can't have a rabbit video without talking about Miyamoto Usagi, the star of the series Usagi Yojimbo, which translates to Rabbit Bodyguard. Usagi was the creation of writer-artist Stan Sakai, and he first appeared in an anthology comic called Albedo in 1984, later graduating to his own series, which to this day is still written and drawn by Stan Sakai. The story of Usagi Yojimbo takes place in the feudal Japan of an alternate world populated by anthropomorphic animals. Stan Sakai had several influences when creating the series, including the films of Akira Kurosawa and the long-running manga Lone Wolf and Cub. Despite having his own long-running comic series, many fans know Usagi through his many crossovers with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, making appearances in Ninja Turtles comics, several animated series, and toy lines. In the original Ninja Turtles animated series, Usagi appeared in episodes 32 and 34 in the third season of the cartoon. He received two figures in the original Ninja Turtles toy line, both as the original Usagi and his future counterpart, Space Usagi. He next appeared in the 2003 Ninja Turtles animated series in episodes 23 through 26 of the second season, and he received a new action figure in the series based on that cartoon in 2004. In the 2012 Ninja Turtles CGI animated series, he appeared in the fifth season, in a 3-episode arc where the Turtles are hurled into his dimension. And once again, Usagi received several new figures in the toy line to that series. NECA has also released 2 different Usagi Yojimbo figures in their toy line dedicated to the original Ninja Turtles animated series, both an original and a Space Usagi, which each had an additional release in black and white. Outside of the Turtles franchise, Usagi saw an action figure release from Antarctic Press back in 1998. This figure was released in 3 different colorways. In 2023, NECA released a special 4-figure box set featuring 4 different versions of Usagi to commemorate the 2023 Lunar New Year, which was the Year of the Rabbit. In April of 2022, Netflix premiered an original animated series based on Usagi Yojimbo. Although the series did not follow the adventures of the original Usagi from the comics, but a younger version who was a descendant of the original. And as of the date of this recording, no action figures or toys have been created to coincide with this version of Usagi. The Usagi figure that I have here is from NECA, part of the collection based on the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series. I did a full review of this figure in a previous video, which I will link in the description if you want to check it out. That covers all the rabbits that I have in my own collection, but let's do some honorable mention. Back at Christmas time, I did a video about the history of the Rankin Bass Christmas specials, but Rankin Bass also produced a few Easter specials in their day. That includes Here Comes Peter Cottontail from 1971, a stop-motion animated special narrated by Danny Kaye and starring the voices of Casey Kasem as Peter Cottontail and Vincent Price as the villainous Irontail. In 2003, Diamond Select created a series of action figures based on this Easter special. And like many of the figures I covered in the Christmas special, this Peter Cottontail line is highly desired by Rankin Bass collectors. There have been hundreds of different Transformers over the years that could turn into a variety of vehicles and beasts. And strangely enough, there have been two rabbits that have appeared in Transformers lore, both of them in the Japanese exclusive sequels to Beast Wars. The first was Moon, who appeared in the 1998 series Beast Wars II. Moon was part of a team that watched over the planet Gaia, the location of the conflict between the Maximals and Predacons during that series. Moon transformed into a very anime-like blue and yellow rabbit. The second Transformers rabbit is named Stampy, who appeared in the 1999 series Beast Wars Neo. Stampy was a cheery yet cowardly Maximal triple changer who could transform into a domestic white rabbit and, strangely enough, a pair of scissors. He possessed enhanced hearing, speed, and intelligence gathering capability. In the original 1980s He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon, we met Plundor the Spoiler, the ruler of planet Tranus, who appeared in the episode Quest for He-Man. He-Man wound up in Plundor's clutches after Skeletor had erased his memory, but luckily Orko showed up with Ram Man and Cringer to restore He-Man's memory and fight off Plundor and his Rabots, who were rabbit robots, in case you couldn't figure that out from the name. Plundor, who appeared as a giant purple humanoid rabbit, was created by writer Paul Dini and storyboard artist Warren Greenwood. Both of them were fans of the comic strip Life in Hell, created by Matt Groening, and Plundor was meant to be based on Groening's character of Binky the Rabbit. So for those of you keeping track on your conspiracy boards at home, the creator of Harley Quinn was inspired by the creator of The Simpsons to create a giant purple rabbit. In 2013, Plundor received his first action figure in the Masters of the Universe Classics line, released by Matty Collector. In 1987, Hasbro unleashed the Battle Beasts, a series of animal warrior figures that stood 2 inches tall. Among these was Hair-Raising Rabbit, number 22 in the series. And like all Battle Beasts, he came with 3 variations in his chest rub sign, representing either wood, fire, or water. There have been 2 different versions of the actual Easter Bunny released in action figure form. An action figure of the Easter Bunny, as he was seen in the film Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, which was actually directed by Henry Selick, was released by Diamond Select Toys, while Figures Toy Company has released an 8-inch Mego-style figure of the Easter Bunny, complete with a furry suit and soft goods costume. And honestly, this Easter Bunny figure looks like all those mall Easter Bunnies you see in pictures of screaming kids being forced to sit on his lap. And finally, we have a preview of an upcoming rabbit action figure. This one from Spiro Toys' Animal Warriors of the Kingdom line. This 1/12 scale figure of a rabbit warrior named Kanji is set to be released in early 2025. He is described as a talented bowman and is packed with the appropriate accessories. That's it for my look at rabbit action figures. Hope you enjoyed it. To those that celebrate it, Happy Easter, and I'll see you in the next video.